Hey everyone, welcome back to my podcast, Anatomy and Physiology Bit by Bit. This is Dr. Steve Sullivan, Professor of Anatomy and Physiology at Bucks County Community College, just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm sitting in the office in my house, which has now been rendered into a quarantine room for the oldest of my three cats. My cat suffered from hyperthyroidism, which meant that his thyroid was producing way too much thyroid hormone and making his cells way too active. So he's burning a ton of calories, losing a lot of weight. He lost, let's say he went from about 15.5 pounds to 10.5 pounds in about 3 months. So that's a huge amount of weight loss. And we got pretty worried about him. So got him tested, brought him in. His T4 numbers were very high. That is thyroxine, the thyroid hormone with 4 iodine atoms in the molecule. And so the treatment that we chose was for him to get an injection of a radioactive isotope of iodine called iodine-131. And what that does is that goes in there and destroys a lot of the hormone-producing cells of the thyroid gland. So he did that about 10, 11 days ago. And for 2 weeks, he has to be quarantined because he is radioactive. So we can't let him near our other pets or our kids, and can't really spend too much time with him, cuddling and sleeping and things like that. And all of his waste has to be disposed of separately from everything else and stored in a bin for 2 months outside before it can be put in the regular trash, so that the isotope has a chance to decay enough that it's not going to generate positive radioactivity in a trash dump. So it's been quite an interesting ride here. The poor cat is very lonely and is used to spending a lot of time with us. So, but he's better off in the long run. He's 15.5 years old. I think he's going to get a few more years out of this one, and that'll be great. But anyway, this is a short episode. I wanted to get into the cytoplasm of the cell, which is the cytosol, the fluid, and the organelles that are inside the cell, inside the plasma membrane. So let's get going. There are several components to the cytoplasm. The first one is the watery intracellular fluid inside the cell called cytosol. Once inside the cell, you can see the structural framework made out of several proteins, which is called the cytoskeleton. Individual functional units are spread out throughout the cell, and we call those organelles. They carry out most of the jobs that need to be done for the cell to function. Then there are also non-organelles called inclusions, and these include lipids, stored glucose, pigments, bacteria, viruses, and foreign particles that the cell has ingested. Let's start with the cytoskeleton. It's made of proteins called microtubules, microfilaments, and intermediate filaments. It gives the cell shape. It gives it stability. It anchors the internal components of the cell into their place. It also allows for the movement of organelles inside the cell. Speaking of organelles, let's talk about cellular function. Cellular function is the work that any particular cell does, and it's a combination of individual jobs performed by several organelles, which includes the nucleus. The nucleus of the cell is bound by a 2-layered nuclear membrane, and it contains our genetic material, DNA. Ribosomes are small organelles that are subdivided into 2 parts. They're found inside the nucleus and in the cytoplasm. Ribosomes synthesize proteins from amino acids as dictated by the DNA. There are 2 kinds of endoplasmic reticulum: rough ER and smooth ER. Rough ER is an extension from the outer nuclear membrane. It's called rough because it's studded with ribosomes on its outer surface. After ribosomes assemble a peptide of amino acids, the rough ER processes it by, among other things, folding it into a three-dimensional protein, attaching carbohydrates, or even removing some of the amino acids. A continuation of the rough ER is called smooth endoplasmic reticulum, with no ribosomes. The smooth ER functions to remove toxins like drugs and alcohol from our bodies and synthesize steroid hormones. The Golgi complex, which resembles a stack of soggy pancakes, receives processed proteins from the rough ER. Here, proteins are sorted, processed with carbohydrates, and sometimes cut into pieces. Then the finished product is bound up into a membrane-enclosed vesicle that may be used to deliver the product to another part of the cell, or even secrete it out of the cell entirely. Some of those Golgi vesicles become lysosomes, which are membrane-bound digestive enzymes that can break down proteins, carbohydrates, and other substances. They can even be used to destroy the cell itself when it is no longer needed. This is called programmed cell death, or apoptosis. Centrosomes are organelles that are very active in cell division. They're made up of two centrioles, each composed of 9 sets of 3 microtubules arranged into a cylindrical shape. Those are surrounded by a loose mass of proteins and nucleic acids called pericentriolar material. There are other organelles, but the last one we'll cover is mitochondria. These are the organelles bound by a 2-layered membrane that transfer the energy in glucose to a molecule called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. ATP is the molecule from which our cells extract the energy needed to do work. Alright, so like I said, short episode, just a little overview of the organelles inside the cytoplasm. I hope that one helps you out, gives you a little tidbit on the cell. And I think in the next episode we're going to move into the nucleus. So we have a few topics important to the nucleus in terms of cell biology. So we'll be looking at DNA structure and protein synthesis, as well as mitosis, which would be division of the nucleus. All right, I hope you have a great day. Good luck on your next A&P exam, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey, don't forget to check out my YouTube channel, Student Help for AP. That's the word Student Help, the number 4, AP. And I also have an Instagram account and a Twitter feed with the same name. So check those out too. Anatomy and Physiology Bit by Bit is a production of Minus 55 Media, with a special thanks to Bucks County Community College for giving me a job doing what I love.